Peter and Santa were orphans. When they were babies, their father and mother were killed in a railway accident, so they came and lived with their aunt. The aunt's name was Rebecca Posset, but of course they called her Aunt Rebecca. The aunt had been a lady's maid to a duchess. This was a good thing, because when the duchess died, she left her an annuity. And, as Aunt Rebecca had no other money, and neither had the children, it was important. In other ways, it was not so good. Being lady's maid to a duchess had made Aunt Rebecca suppose that only dukes and duchesses, and perhaps kings and queens, could be right. She never did or said anything without first thinking how her Grace would have said or done it. As the duchess's sayings and doings had been rather a bore, Aunt Rebecca's were too. What Aunt Rebecca said and did would not have mattered much to Peter and Santa because, of course, they were interested in their own things. But most unluckily, the Duchess had a great many grandchildren who had often been to stay at Pleat, where the Duchess had spent most of her time. How Peter and Santa suffered from the Duchess's grandchildren. I don't believe anything nice ever happened to that awful Lady Marigold, or Lady Moira, or those horrible Manliston children, Santa grumbled. Peter said, "It's all very well for you to make a fuss, but you don't have that dreadful Lord Bronadin pushed down your throat all day." Santa had fair hair, which hung right down to her waist. It curled a little bit, but not enough, so it had to be what Aunt Rebecca called helped. Santa hated her hair. She wanted it cut short, or at least put in plaits, but instead she was made to wear it loose, because the Duchess had said, "A woman's glory is her hair." She had also said, "How hair looks depends on the brushing it gets. 600 strokes a night, that's my rule." Which from Santa's point of view was a very annoying statement. Though Peter did not realise it, the worst thing Lord Bronadin did to him was over education. Lord Bronadin went to a preparatory school and was down for Eton. Aunt Rebecca could not possibly afford either, but she would not send Peter to an ordinary school. Instead, she sent him to be taught privately. Of course, the annuity would not pay for a proper tutor, but it paid bits to various people who knew a little. There was Mr. Stibbings. He was a retired parson. He knew a lot of Latin, but could not teach it. Peter went to him for an hour after tea twice a week. Then there was Madame Tronchot. Both Peter and Santa went to her. She gave French lessons at £1 the lesson, or 18p for two. For the ordinary subjects, like reading and arithmetic, there was a friend of Aunt Rebecca's, called Mrs. Ford, whose husband had been a schoolmaster. Mrs. Ford did not know much herself, but she had her husband's books and taught from them. Santa, besides going to Madame Tronchot, shared Mrs. Ford with Peter and did music as well. She learnt the violin, not because she was musical, but of all silly reasons, because Lady Marigold had learnt to play it. There could not really be a more stupid reason. Aunt Rebecca being poor, these violin lessons were a shocking waste of money. Santa was taught by a Miss Lucy Fane, and the violin was bought on the hire purchase. Somebody had once told Miss Fane that she looked like a Rossetti picture, and she'd never forgotten it. She dressed to look Rossetti-ish, but as she nearly always had a cold, she put a red shawl round her shoulders, which spoilt the effect. Partly because Miss Fane always had colds and was too sniffy to teach, and partly because she could not teach anyway, Santa never learnt much, and she would not have learnt much even if she had an aptitude for playing the violin, which she certainly had not. Miss Fane liked pieces which she described as that dear little slumber song, and she liked hymns. Santa could never remember how her fingers went in the dear little slumber songs, so she took to hymns, or rather to one hymn. It was called Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It was easy fingering, and expressed so exactly how she felt about violins that in the end she knew that tune quite well.